Hello, this is Dr. Tara Van Zant Stern with SSD Global Solutions, Smart Simple Decision Making. Our company, along with ASQ Denver, are the sponsors of the Rocky Mountain Quality Consortium. You can find out more about SSD at ssdglobal.net, and you can discover more information about the Rocky Mountain Quality Consortium, along with information about today's speaker at www.rmqc.org. Our guest today is Suzanne, who is a performance improvement consultant. She has over 20 years of experience in design, implementation, and managing organizational change. Suzanne holds a master's degree in human performance and instructional systems design. Her passion is helping people discover the value and continually improving quality of the workplace experience. She's going to talk to us about 5S, which is a cornerstone of continual improvement, safer workplace, and greater productivity. With great passion, I introduce to you Suzanne.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I'd like to add a little bit more about me and kind of where I'm coming from on this presentation. Most of my experience has been within organizations as an internal consultant role, and usually occurs after projects have failed or after we've had a process that has been run over a team and there's a lot of team resistance. So much of my experience has been really learning how to ease the emotions and get people back on track and going towards a common goal again. So I'd like to share some of that with you in terms of bringing in the 5S as a cornerstone and using it really to launch your quality programs, or as that example to start building that foundation. So in this presentation, there will be addressing the basic model, a little bit of its history, and in terms of looking at how to get the buy-in for it, and then speaking in general terms of how to use the 5S as a cornerstone for ongoing quality improvement, creating safer workplaces, greater productivity, and being able to use it for problem recognition. All of these things help to empower your staff, and I think that is really the key, is getting the buy-in and the empowerment and the tools into the hands of those that are closest to the workstation. We'll talk a little bit about how you can use the 5S to create and sustain a quality culture as well and get that focus onto quality, the focus into shifting it into a mindset, into the cultural values. And basically, the beauty of 5S is it prevents this. Have you ever noticed that there are some people who are very organized and there are some who have to dig around and look for things and don't really know how to reach into that pile and pull out exactly what it is they need? Well, that's the beauty of 5S. It helps us to lower that stress, have access to what we need, so that we can better set ourselves up for success as well as the teams within the organization. After all, where would you rather spend your time? Searching for something or being productive, getting it done, and having time to take a deep breath, relax, rejuvenate yourself, and focus in on the next task? So in looking at the origin of the 5S, we come back to typically saying, hey, it's 5 Japanese words. And those words, seirei, seiton, seiso, seiketsu, shitsuke, meaning sort, straighten, shine, standardize, and sustain. Oftentimes what I found is, well, yeah, that works great in the Japanese culture. And the Japanese are willing to come in and be a part of the organization that cleans the floor and gets everything good, keeps everything moving just as it is an extension from the home, but we're not so sure we're right there. We're not Japanese. And in doing some additional research moving through, I found that maybe the origin really isn't just Japanese, but perhaps it's the Japanese who were able to bring it to a higher life. When I looked into the origins and the variations, I found, as I traced back, that Henry Ford had what was called can do, which is basically cleaning up, arranging, keeping it neat, easy to access the tools, having the discipline to keep it ready, especially on the assembly line where the next person would be coming in. We wanted to be able to keep each shift moving, having everything in place and not having to look for tools, and being able to sustain that so that it transferred from one shift to another. So really, it is an American concept, and it deals with productivity, American ingenuity, as well as bringing in that teamwork and creating very enterprising organizations. As I looked more through things and compared different names and different variations, this came up when I would hear, oh, yes, we've already done 5Cs. We've done the English version of the 5S's, and again, it started to come into, we've done it before, it's not going to work. And with that, a little digging around became, well, what did you do? How did it work? What parts of it worked? Where did you find value in it? Where did you find that there really was no value, or that you weren't able to implement the value of it? And these questions started to open up conversations. And instead of it being, okay, here's another program that's being brought down on us, it started to become, how can we use this tool to alleviate a pain point within our work area? How can we make it to be more effective and more efficient and easier on us so that we are improving our own workspace and basically finding solutions for those things that are frustrating our corner of the organization? And when that shift started to being more of having control over how the work got done and as a tool to resolve the discrepancies between team members or work styles, it opened for better communication and better ways of doing things. When it came to bringing the model in, I had pulled the basic model and looked, and I found that maybe there needed to be some shifts. And then part of this came into looking at how were the shifts occurring, again, looking at that sales point. Why did we go from a 5S model to a 6S model? Why was the focus, why did we add safety when the other obviously was made for safety? And again, I started finding information and focus on to get the buy-in from management was tying it to a safer, giving it value. The safety brings the value in, you start to see things, you start being able to tie it onto a current value. And I think that is what had the beauty of it. And again, trying to get that management support to be able to have the resources needed and the encouragement, the time, the allocation, the use of the tools to do some of the projects. I found it to be helpful as we looked at the safety and the value of the organizations in bringing forth who can sponsor this, who has an investment in it, how do we find the champions for it, who are the stakeholders, who's impacted by it, and in what way can we add value that benefits their needs. Comes back to that old-fashioned what's in it for me channel, WIIFM. As I looked for how to make the graphic a little more user-friendly in my explanations, I found that in many cases, in order to implement things in, we would need to start with a smaller project. And maybe it'd be as simple as cleaning out a supply cabinet or setting up the mail room where you picked up your mail, or a storage area, or even the kitchen. And so as I looked at it, it's like, okay, can't eat the whole elephant in one time. Can we take parts of it, and can this move around? How can we move around with this to bring it into a higher level of cooperation? And when I looked at it, the safety really became the central thing, as did what are the other values. We have waste elimination, enhanced productivity, being able to identify when something needs maintenance, having it be clean, less slippage, easy to find things. We know where things are. We know if a tool is missing. We know when we're low on supplies. We can stay ahead of it. We can stay just in time in what we bring. We do not have to have a massive amount of storage because we're keeping an eye on what we do have and maintaining what we have. And so the model became very simple to start in one area, work through the 5 steps, create that benefit, and then be able to look at, is there another layer to this? Can we walk around this in another way? If we start with this one component and we make these changes after the teams have been working with those changes, oftentimes it's like, hey, we should have done this and this and this too. Well, can we walk around that model again and bring it to that spiral up? Other things that occurred is, oh, we did it in this area, but this kind of impacts somewhere else that we've been. Can we bring this over to this other area as well? Once the teams were using it and being able to see the benefit for it, the teams typically began to find the uses for it. And again, just kind of looking at the model. And as we look at here on the model, identifying areas of what would we need to do these projects. Each project that you run the model on is going to be a different size and a different scope. So how do I create a program that's going to fit all this, and it's going to match all this, and it's going to be able to run this program out and make it happen in all these areas? And typically what I found is when there was a program that was going to be run out, there was a lot of resistance. However, if I took the tool to a team and after we'd identified some pain points, and then I brought the tool into the team, I would typically find that people would take the process and go, okay, what do we need? And at that time, we could look at each of these components and say, okay, how much and what do I need to sort? Do I need 3 bins? Do I need one for the trash? Do I need one for what we're planning on keeping? Do I need one for things that need to go to another organization and be repurposed? Do I need tags? Do I need markers? Do I need labels? What do I need? What are going to be the things to do each step? One of the key things in sorting and setting this up, I've always found, is who's going to be involved. Again, the people side of it, I have always found to be as much or more than the actual task. I could rather easily take a model and take examples and show people the tool. I could also work with people and say, okay, when you clean out your closet, what do you do? And typically people will go, oh yeah, I pull the clothes out, throw them on the bed, I sort through what I'm keeping, I throw out what doesn't fit. People had strategies for doing that. They have strategies for, how am I going to put this in order? Well, I'm going to structure my clothes where I have shirts on one side, pants on a different rack. I have sweaters over here. I have on my shirts, I want them to go from short sleeve to long sleeve. I want them to be color coordinated. Everyone has their own style of bringing it together. When the closet's cleaned out, I've always found people really enjoy pulling the dust out and getting everything clean, making sure everything fits. Shelves are functional, and looking for ways of finding better storage within that area. Being able to standardize. Do you have more than one person in that closet? Where is their list? Where is someone else's list? Again, what is that standard going to look like? The people need to be involved in it. What are their values? How are they going to put it together? What do they need in each phase? And that leads into how do they want to monitor themselves? What is going to be their standard that also aligns with the organizational standard? How does that get put together so that it works for multiple people? Again, focusing on being able to bring it into as a process, but then being open as it scales and changes. It may start off as a process and being a tool for smaller projects, and it may begin to expand, and typically it does expand. It starts off as, well, we just did this one area. Well, if we can make that area so much more functional and easy to use, then how about we do that to this other area? Okay, now that this area is more functional and easy to use, how can we do it over here? And eventually it ends up where you've done the entire place. Much like cleaning out a house. It doesn't matter what room you start in. It matters that you start, and you start to get that organization going. And then it can continue to grow and move along. It becomes a system. It becomes a way of life, a way of work. It moves its way into the organization of values, and it becomes the standard by which we live, not by saying, oh, you will live to this standard, but it becomes our own pattern as our habits change. And in this, also needing to look at, it does take time for habits to change. How are we going to hold ourselves and each other accountable? What is agreeable to holding that accountable up front? How would we like to be approached when we have failed to live to that standard that we set? What is it? What do we give another? What is it to have that permission to say, hey, we agreed on this. How are you going to approach this? That becomes really key. Being able to set up our own way, a mutual way that works to bring it together. And I think that becomes one of the biggest components of being able to implement it and get the buy-in. When we look at the selling of it up front, so to speak, there are numerous benefits. And Tim Woods has often been a tool that I've used and found great success with, as it allows people to look at those areas and take that in when they're setting up their workspace. How can we work with the transportation of things back and forth and movement? Do we have the tools that we need closest to us? Are the ones that are closest to us the ones that we use more often? Do we have to sort through things? Do we end up where we are leaving things to chance? Are we leaving things and having to trip over them? Are we putting them in our own way? How can we do this so that we do not put things in our own way and that we are focused on being able to accomplish the task in an efficient way? Much of this is really finding ways to change our own pattern and work style. We find it able to optimize the efficiencies, especially between different teams and within teams. Again, when we start to be able to find our own involvement in things and looking at it, how is it coming from us, our own center, how is that rippling out to those impacted, and how is it going through the team and further out into the organization? One of the things I do encourage is for people to do this at home. How can I set it up to where, one, I am following within the guidelines set? How can I work with my family or other members in my household to continue that space, keeping the streamlining and the improvement ongoing? How can I create that? So whether you're working in your home environment or whether you're working in a work or a team environment, there needs to be the respect for people and how they're going to handle things, there also needs to be the respect for the organization and the workstation itself. How can we make this workstation do the best function? And here again, tapping into the tools, your voice of the business, your voice of that workstation, your voice of how that piece, that process fits into other components of the organization. Additional benefits have included, the more uptime. We don't have to be constantly fixing things or finding things broken or taking the time out to fix a saw or charge batteries or add to the piece, because everything is left in a way that the next person can come in and automatically move forward. When this is turned over to be put together and the agreements made by the team, I find that the team members become much more committed, much more engaged in how they would like their workspace to be, and much more willing to create that positive environment that people, we all say we want the positive environment, we want this, we want that, and yet oftentimes end up sitting in the criticism or the negativity of, oh, this hasn't happened and this happens and that happens and nothing gets done. Well, why is it not getting done? Here's your opportunity for the 5 whys. How do we move this forward? How do we create where it's less stressful? How do we create where it's different? How do we, instead of spending the time in the unproductive negative behavior, how do we take that and move it forward into the steps that come back? 5S becomes this beautiful tool for teaching that as well. It becomes a tool for letting people experience resolving the issues and moving forward while creating a safer environment that creates a better quality workplace, a place where people want to show up. Another sales point with the 5S or 6S, which depending how you want to call it, is looking at the efficiency. This one typically, for me, I have found really doesn't occur until people have actually done a 5S on an area, and when they can relate that to where there's less stress. One of the favorite ones for me was resolving the issue of dishes in a workplace sink just being left, and things left on the counter and the refrigerator and all these other components, and when we finally started to find the agreements and, what would you like to see? How would you like to walk in a kitchen and have it be clean and ready and, easy to use? How would you like to be able to use the toaster oven and find that or the microwave and have it be clean? Some of it became, training in different areas and ways of quickly doing things, because when we're busy running into the kitchen, our mindset is, how do I throw this into the microwave? How do I get this to go? How do I take it out? Oh, great, there's spaghetti all over the microwave. I don't have time for it. I need to get back to my office. I'm eating on the run. Yada, 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 yada. I'm eating at my desk. I'm not taking time out for me. I'm building more and more stress for myself, and I don't know how to do this. Well, this becomes your opportunity to start to break that stress cycle as well. Cleaning the microwave, as simple as sticking a cup of water in it, running it on high, wipe it out. Takes less than 30 seconds. And showing the value for those pieces. When the changes did occur and the kitchen started to be cleaner, the microwave stayed cleaner, and people found they were actually able to breathe and eat their meal in the kitchen area, where there was actually a clean table and a place to sit. The kitchen also became an area for brown bags. It became an area to solve problems, much like a kitchen table at home. It became an appliance, so to speak, for building those bridges, because there was now a safe place, a clean place, a place that was valued and maintained. This also works again on assembly lines or on areas where you have shared equipment. How do you keep it up and moving for the next person? How do you respect the skills for the next person? And as it starts to be seen as receiving that respect and giving that respect, there becomes a shift in the culture. There becomes a shift in how people respond to each other, and the workplace changes. And so while these efficiencies become very, very predominant and able to move forward, they also can be used to bring that team with it as well. Kaylee, on this one, we need to put a different slide on it. The dots got missed. And that's slide 13. And again, we've talked a little bit of 5S as a cornerstone to quality already leading into it. And the biggest thing being that shift towards teamwork to me. One of my values is being able to have the collaborative teams, have the openness where people can sit down and say, hey, you know, how this works needs to be cleared up here. And so 5S has also become that tool by using that process of creating of that workspace. That tool, for me, has increased productivity by lowering stress between people, improving communications, and bringing that level of empowerment to the workers. They now have more skills. Sometimes in bringing the 5S into places, there has been a need for bringing in some of the teamwork and creating the trust components. I've also found that the 5S serves as a tool to help build that trust. You know, here's a framework that you can use. Here's a problem that we can solve together. We really aren't just sitting in a classroom walking through something that doesn't fit. We're actually resolving an issue that is causing stress or inconvenience or inefficiencies or lower quality in our own area. And we're working together with it. We're having to overcome preconceived notions. We are getting the experience of how this tool works. We have our first-hand data. Oftentimes it all just, yeah, that's neat theory. Well, theory needs to become reality. Theory needs to move into that space where we do have the experience. And from that experience that, hey, we've made this work, we have success, or hey, yeah, we ran into some trouble, but we were able to move through that and create a better experience out of this, starts to change the culture. Again, it brings more of that ripple effect in. One of the things in rippling is being able to start small. Where's a small hit? Where's that low-hanging fruit? Where's something that's visible? Or can resolve a big pain point that it's going to say, you know, hey, that process really worked. Our section's a whole lot better, and having gone through this, our team's functioning more. We're able to have higher production. We are able to meet the deadlines and actually have some time to enjoy each other and learn and, you know, build that trust and that teamwork together. In implementing, I think in implementing any program or any tool, one of the real big keys becomes credit and praise, stepping away from the ego and really moving to how do I help people? How do I serve to open up this component, facilitate? Let me move into the role of a facilitator. And as things work and people start to have the ideas go together, they resolve things, they sort through what they're keeping, what they want to get rid of. They start to look at how do I set this in order? What's going to be the best way of reaching this? How do I put this where I can easily grab information? How do I make it to be better? And all those successes belong to the team. If there's a way to find a measurement of before, how long it takes to do something, and being able to show time saved from having to go find tools, time saved from having to explain to somebody why it has to be a certain way, when that can be done once, an agreement made, and implemented and followed. All that credit and praise needs to go to the workers. It is not conducive to take the praise. If there's a failure, then look at it as it's a step that has a challenge. And so now it becomes going, what is underneath this? What other tools do I need to bring in order to make it through this little bump so that I can get this moving forward? I've typically found that the 5S has very little failure. If it is, it's in a team component, and it's something that needs to be addressed underneath as building trust, gaining the buy-in, the visibility, having the support needed that trust can go forward. And that has, as those things have been resolved, I have always found the workers to move forward. And again, praise goes there as to what that team has done. That also ripples out as pride and goes to other teams. And soon I have found that other areas are inviting me to say, hey, can you do the same thing with us? Can you help us through that? And that's the big thing, is creating, it's an us. Stepping in and, yeah, it's an us. I'm here temporarily as a tool for you, as someone to help guide you through it. But the credit all belongs to you. A lot of focus in this has been more on cultural shifts and values. And 5S has often been a tool for me to be able to take in an organization that really has not had a focus on quality or that function and start to open it up. It's like, hey, how do we make this to where it's more functional for you? And sometimes I have had to back away from the use of the word quality, because it's like, oh God, here comes a quality initiative. It's going to be this, it's going to be that, it's going to be, and it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's focus on making it better. And the quality for putting it in terms of make it better has often led to, okay, where is this not working well for you? How does this need to move? And that has brought a lot of things to where the model has become very simple. And the results just are outstanding. It's easy to look at. I want to sort through what we got. Okay, this is clutter, this is gone. Let's put it in an order. Okay, this is going to work. Okay, here we go. Here's how we make it clean. Here's how we get it to where everything's going to be in its place and we can maintain it. Here's how we're going to standardize it and keep it maintained. Here's how we keep a physical workspace to be able to immediately be there and sustain it. Those transactions, the interactions between people really become critical. And it's those transactions that start to build your success. And I think that also looks at in terms of how do you create a quality culture? We talk about we want employee engagement, teamwork, empowerment, that we want our values to be there. We want to be able to have the interactions be positive and going forward. Here's your chance. What are your key performance indicators? What does a quality culture mean to you? What is a culture that you want to have mean to you? As well as how do I build that culture of quality? And where do I get that first visual hit? And I find that the first visual hit is typically a 5S. It's simple, it's beautiful. I'd like for you to think of an area that you could get a quick improvement, where would you start? Something that's quick that could be done in a matter of hours, short, quick, visible. Some of the other considerations in thinking of where you would like to start would be who would be the most likely to benefit, that would be a strong advocate. Who's going to embrace this and take it forward? And here comes your change management component. How do I bring this forward? How do I make this a tool that I can strategically get buy-in and have people out there being a voice for it? I've identified a few potential areas, anything that's a shared area. Again, visibility, your kitchen is often a pain point. Inventory rooms, supply cabinets, filing, anywhere that there is a collection of things that doesn't get done. Why isn't it getting done? What additional components are needed to do it? People have looked at garages coming in as a place to get started. If there's an area on a shop floor with equipment, especially if there's equipment that has been breaking down and has a lot of downtime, being able to get that cleaned up so that you can start to get those visual cues. What is a place that really shows your benefits for the time that you're going to put into it? And again, emphasizing people. We have process, we have people, we have the technology that we use to do it. Who's impacted? How can they be involved? How can they be given the tools to make it better? Because that's what's going to give you your sustainability. Oftentimes when I do a presentation, I will ask, where do you see the biggest challenge? And inevitably, it is always on the sustaining and the change management component. The only real piece I can find that has worked has been the involvement of those who are doing it. The person doing the work, being down on the floor, being, the Gemba, be there, be where the work's happening, and have those conversations. Know what's going on with them. It's like, hey, I hear your pain. I hear with this and this seems to be an area of issue. Would you and your team be open to resolving that and using this tool? I'm looking for a place that I can demonstrate a process or a tool, and here's some of the effects that it could have for you. And sometimes they don't want to have a tool come in and they don't want to be run over by a tool. So it's like, well, would it be all right just to meet and start looking at ways that we can do this a little bit better? And oftentimes they're willing to take a look at that. It's really scaling it down to what is an acceptable approach. Where are the people at? Is it a smaller, intimate group? Is it a culture that needs more of a process than a program type, and they're open to that program type? Or is that program type going to be more of an issue, more of a, hey, this is being done to us? And as mentioned before, I really encourage to look for ways of moving past resistance by working at it in your home. And one of the places I have found to be the most key in overcoming resistance has been in my doing it in my home and trying to make me make those changes. As I find ways where I have failed in that, I often find different ways of resistance, and people are pretty much the same. So some self-awareness in how you are approaching things and how you do it. Are you walking the talk? Are you living it? Is this a commonplace for how this rolls out? Because that example and that leading by example is going to be a key success to your program. Looking for where is the success area? How am I going to lead by example? How do I empower other people to have it? That's what's going to make your program. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to hook up with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to get to know you. Or you can email me, and the email is provided below. Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me.